Hello, we're here today with Vahni Capildeo, who is the writer-in-residence at U St Augustine for Campus Literature Week this year. Today they're going to talk to us about Caribbean writers for Lit 2502.
Hello, today we are in the beautiful grounds of UE St Augustine for the good and bad reasons that with the coronavirus pandemic, the university is more or less closed to students. This means we are not in a normal office space or lecture theatre, and there are advantages and disadvantages to this. One advantage is that the rollback of civil liberties, which is necessary to contain the disease, is not something which we should make part of our normal lives once the disease is contained, because normality is something that has to be fought for and constantly fought for again. So although it would be easier in some ways to be doing this in a classroom with a PowerPoint, I'm very happy to be able to remind people of what it is like to be outdoors. I'm not an expert in Caribbean literature, but it often happens that people who are writers do not have academic training in writing as such. My academic training was in medieval literature. So what I would begin by saying is that my awareness of Caribbean women, which is the topic of today's talk, begins in the anecdotal, and there have been extraordinary and strong women in the region. For example, when I was in the car with my mother as a child, she pointed out Beryl McBurney, the great dancer. She just said, "That is Beryl McBurney crossing the street." You can now read a history of her, written by our local historian, another woman, Judy Raymond. There has been much written about women, strong women calypsonians like Calypso Rose, and women as storytellers, the keepers of oral tradition. But there are also these genealogies of women in public positions, and those need to be looked at. Now, in terms of the analysis of women as writers, it's necessary to make an intersectional analysis, because when you look at women writers from the global north, roughly speaking, you'll find a link between women and being indoors. Confinement, of course, being one word for pregnancy, but also the sense of the domestic as being a female space, whatever female means these days. For example, the Irish writer Evan Boland in Object Lesson writes about sitting at her table with a lamp in the evenings and concentrating. She writes about the difficulty of reclaiming the poem for the Irish woman as an individual, because Irish male writers used to figure Ireland as female. So if you were using the pronoun I as a woman writer, like Evan Boland, and you really just wanted to mean I myself who walked the dog, I myself who divorced my husband, or I myself who planted a tree or whatever, in the tradition of Irish poetry that would mean you were talking about all of Ireland. So the difficulty for her was really just fighting to reclaim everyday life as something a woman could talk about as an individual. And what I want to say is that for women of particular classes, and also for women in the global south broadly, that way of being in the domestic interior is not necessarily true. And for example, you'd have the idea of the woman as being able to do heavy field work. So going to the American South, you'd have a character like Sojourner Truth, an historical character, and her famous speech, "Ain't I a woman?" showing her muscles and asking, "Ain't I a woman? This is also what a woman is." In this country, of course, you've got all the history of women expecting to do field work. You also have the peculiar history of white women coming over as the wives of missionaries or doctors or plantation owners and expecting to be able to be complicit in the punishment of workers, be complicit in the running of plantations, be complicit in the healing of wounds and illnesses which they would never have encountered before. This led to a peculiar kind of fetishization of the woman, and that fetishization has intersectional dimensions according to the color of the body. The white woman is fetish object, the black woman is fetish object, but these really are beyond my expertise. I just say that writing as a woman, writing of a woman, writing femaleness in any way in this region has its own particular dimensions. One of the things I can't emphasize enough about writers just springing up as writers, regardless of academic background, is it's really important not to pretend to know something if you don't know it. Also to look at recommendations that come from anywhere, from other writers, other people, dead people, living people, imaginary people, zombies, and the land itself, libraries, archives, whatever you can find. So I'm going to make my own imperfect recommendations in a while, but for Caribbean women and writing, I'm very lucky to be sitting here in UWI St. Augustine, and I am going to catch Dr. Vijay Maharaj, who knows all about this, and ask her for her immediate recommendations, which she will not have been able to prepare. So Dr. Maharaj has just kindly shared with us, off the top of her head, her top 12 Caribbean women writers, whom we can add to our community of the imagination. And these are Sharon Miller, Edwidge Danticat, Jennifer Rahim, Merle Collins, Lorna Goodison, Maryse Condé, Simone Schwartbat, Jamaica Kincaid, Mahade Das, Jean Rees, Pauline Melville, Diane Brand, a healthy mix of the living, the dead, the distant, the diasporic, and the very close to home, which I am sure Dr. Maharaj will be able to supplement.